Next up, we have Dr. Natalie Metz. Dr. Natalie Metz is a student in the Philosophy, Cosmology, and Consciousness program at CIIS, and she's in private practice at San Francisco Natural Medicine. Her research is guided by a love of plants and healing arts philosophy, as well as conscious exploration of the therapeutic potential of entheogenic experiences. Welcome, Natalie.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate you taking time out of your Saturday afternoon, especially such a glorious one as this, to come and be present for my talk. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Jordan. And thanks to all the rock stars that are pulling this weekend off. We literally started conceiving of this conference in a meeting barely a month ago, and it has all come together. It's pretty amazing. So, yeah, let's keep doing this stuff.
Yes.
So I'm a licensed naturopathic doctor. How many of you are familiar with naturopathic medicine? Okay, decent showing of hands. My medical training is very similar to that of an MD or a chiropractor or an osteopath, in that the same basic clinical and medical sciences are part of my training. I know how to diagnose disease, do physical exams, run blood work, do PEP exams, all of that fun stuff. In addition to learning pharmacology and minor surgery, I spent many years also studying various natural therapeutics, including botanical medicine, nutrition, homeopathy, counseling, physical medicine, mind-body medicine, a whole variety of things. I had over 1,000 documented patient contacts and 1,200 supervised clinical hours during my training, so it's very comprehensive. In the state of California, I am licensed as a primary care provider, and I practice at San Francisco Natural Medicine on top of Potrero Hill, where I do a lot of women's health. I also do a lot with endocrinology, gastroenterology, and balancing mood disorders. So there's a little bit of propaganda out back, including my office card, my Entheogenic Natalie card, and an ad for B12 Happy Hour, which is a fun party we have at my office on Wednesdays where you can come and get some injectable B12 and get a little energy boost. Okay. So the title of my talk is Optimizing Entheogenic Experiences, Enhancing the Journey with Nutrition, Herbs, and Conscious Intention. There we go. Let's make it a little more sparkle-tastic. So optimizing, making the best of the experience. Whatever entheogen it is that you happen to choose, why not try to make the best out of the experience? I like this word entheogen. I realize in this community we bat a lot of words around: psychedelic, psychomimetic, psychointegrator, hallucinogen, entheogen. I like this word. I interpret it to mean helping to generate the god or goddess within and to get into touch with that. And while typically some people classify just the plant-based medicines as entheogens, I also do group in a lot of the other synthetics as well, personally. So I will touch on some of those as we go. And you might recognize some of them that are framing the picture here. We've got, oh, let me go back for a second. We have Alex Gray's painting of Albert Hoffman holding the LSD molecule with the alchemical angel, LSD, crying, as he described it, tears of compassion for humanity into the molecule. This is a section of the ayahuasca vine, Banisteriopsis capi, peyote, the magic mushroom. So I'm coming to this talk from the place of looking at what are some of the conditions and circumstances that can really enhance someone's journey and make it the best that it can be, both for the individual participant as well as the community that is receiving the individual on the other side of the journey. How can they leave this with as beneficial an experience as possible and in a greater state of health than before, ideally? I like to start with conscious exploration as a platform to launch off of. Attention to your intention. This is something I include in my meditation on a daily basis. What can I do to bring my attention to my intention? And I further extrapolate that to meaning mindfulness to all aspects of the experience. Some of the considerations for such a conscious exploration of entheogens might include looking at the set and setting, the substance, the type of medicine that you're taking, the quality of the medicine, how much you're taking, the sitter and guide. I will refer you to Jim Fadiman's work for a bit more in-depth information about these first 3 points here. He's done a great job outlining it in his book. I'm going to focus a bit more here, I keep hitting the wrong button, on nutritional status and considering one's physical condition. I'm going to talk a little bit more to that today. But obviously you have to take into account the emotional well-being as you're going into a journey. Are you stable? Are you emotionally liable? Do you have a lot of lability on board? These are all things to consider, as well as psychosocial factors. And then on the other side of it, how are you going to be able to integrate this experience and what is waiting for you on the other side? So a little bit about entheogenic effects from a more biomedical standpoint. Many of us may be familiar with the effects as far as euphoria and insights and process and whatnot. As far as the physiological effects, what's beautiful about the entheogens is that most of them are not inherently toxic at reasonable doses that people have used for periods of time. Certainly anything in excess could potentially become toxic. Some of the physical effects that most of them share, they tend to cause an elevation or fluctuation in body temperature, sometimes challenges with thermoregulation altogether. Maybe you're getting too warm, you're getting too cold, you're uncomfortable. Often we see an increase in heart rate and blood pressure. And we also see this lovely phenomenon over here, mydriasis or pupil dilation. I think this is quite fascinating. There is a physiological aspect to it, but from the more spiritual aspect, I take it from the eyes are expanding so that we can see, we can take more in, and we can maybe let more out through our soul gates. Sometimes people have digestive system discomforts, maybe some intestinal motility or lack thereof. Often what I experience is people aren't necessarily aware that they might be hungry, or that they're thirsty, or that they need to use the restroom. So it's nice to check in with your friends along the way and say, have you had any water? Have you remembered to go to the bathroom lately? Because they might be dancing for 4 hours and forget about that, or might be seated in an ayahuasca meditation and not feel comfortable to stand up and walk. I'm going to talk a little bit about effects on neurotransmitters as well as the adrenal glands and the immune system. So the stimulatory effects of many of these entheogens do tend to keep us awake for hours upon end, and that can get a little taxing on certain body systems. So we're going to look at that. The neurochemical dance. Yay! Okay. There's a lot more to it than what this picture depicts, but this is a great little visual summary indicating the complex dance between serotonin, norepinephrine, epinephrine, and dopamine, all those factoring largely into mood and cognitive function. As you can see, they each kind of have their own areas that they influence a little bit more than others as well. And we find that many entheogens influence neurochemistry in a really complex way. A lot of things are still not understood. There's some great research going on around the globe into serotonin receptor subtypes and sigma receptors and dopamine agonists, and yet I feel confident saying that there's still so much more to understand from that biomedical aspect. But typically a few things I think that we can draw from the literature is that psilocybin, psilocin, DMT, LSD, and mescaline tend to have an agonistic effect at the serotonin receptor. This means that they stimulate that receptor in the same way that serotonin molecule would and produce downstream effects as serotonin might. Big difference between these and MDMA. So what I'm saying up here, these guys are actually fitting into these receptors down here where these little orange molecules that represent serotonin would as well and stimulate further effects downstream in the postsynaptic neuron. Whereas MDMA goes into the presynaptic neuron and enhances the release of serotonin out into the synaptic space here. And the difference between that is we often see with MDMA use, especially excessive use, there can be kind of this serotonin blowout where people literally kind of blow their serotonin load out and can get a little depleted. That can lead to some depression or the claimed Suicide Tuesday after your Saturday night rave. So I'm interested in helping people to prevent that. LSD has also been shown to be a partial dopamine agonist. There's some interesting research. Dave Nichols is looking at this and how LSD in the first couple hours of an experience tends to have an effect on the serotonin receptors, and then there's a secondary effect on dopamine. So again, there's much more to elucidate here, and that could be a whole separate talk, but just wanted to touch on some of these things. And there has been shown cross tolerance between LSD, mescaline, and psilocybin. So if you're going to have a polypharmacy ride, or if you're going to spend a week at Burning Man and potentially have multiple experiences with some of these medicines, you might want to consider how you're going to sequence them or what dosage you're going to do. And often, if you're going to have a polypharmacy ride, it's best to take less of both or however many substances you're combining. It's easy to overdo it, and it's a lot harder to it's not really easy to go back. You can always add more. And I would recommend strongly really not using alcohol with these. Serotonin, what a lovely molecule, 5-hydroxytryptamine. We take away this hydroxy group here and add 2 methyls over here, and we have DMT. Responsible for lots of things in the body, as you can read: mood, social behavior, sleep, libido, temperature, memory, and learning. Low levels of serotonin have been linked to depression, anxiety, insomnia, and the other conditions listed. Dopamine, very involved in the pleasure centers, the reward pathways, integrating emotion and thought and experience. As you can see, the molecule here is motivating us. Come on, get it together, get up, do something. Low levels can lead to dull cognitive processes, an apathetic state of mind, really low dopamine, particularly destruction of the substantia nigra, can manifest as Parkinson's disease. So here's some pretty structures. I love chemistry, so I just want to show you the similarity of structure here in the tryptamine molecule, serotonin, DMT, psilocin, psilocybin. Over here we have dopamine. You can see norepinephrine. Dopamine is the direct precursor to norepinephrine. Here we have mescaline and 2CB. Substitute an I or any variety of moieties over there, and we get these other 2C series. And here we have LSD, which has an interesting component of this indole ring here, similar to a tryptamine, but then also this kind of N-ethylated structure over there. More chemistry, amphetamine, methamphetamine, MDA, and MDMA. And again, you can see some of the structural similarities to dopamine with this N-ethyl chain over here, and potentially even some serotonin similarities as well. So some general things to consider as far as nutritional support for your overall health and well-being and your entheogenic rockstar explorations. Conscious consumption, mindfulness, intention, attention to your intention. I recommend drinking at least half your body weight in ounces in water every single day. Most people that I interview in my private practice don't sleep enough, eat like crap, and are dehydrated. And once we start to work on those, they start feeling really better, and all those complex chronic problems they've had for a long time start to go away. I definitely recommend eating an organic whole foods diet, so that means no refined food really, or minimal. Lots of fresh green vegetables, lots of fiber. I recommend that people aim for over 30 grams a day. There's ways to quantify that. High antioxidant profile foods, berries, foods that are rich in vitamin A, C, and E, superfoods. We've got our acai, our goji berries over there, cacao, mineral-rich foods like seaweeds. Really giving the body what it needs so that it can do the job that it wants to do on this planet for the time that we have it. Adequate lean protein. Most people need around 60 grams a day. Very important for neurotransmitter synthesis. Balance of omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. In the standard American diet, we tend to have this skew where we have about 1 to 18 omega-3 to omega-6. It should be more like 4 to 1 the other way. And one important dietary note, if you are working with ayahuasca, it's very important to avoid tyramine-containing foods. These are fermented foods and cheese and wine, chocolate too, sorry about that, before and after use, because there can be some toxicity once the MAO enzyme is inhibited with the ayahuasca vine, and tyramine isn't able to be broken down and could lead to a potential neurotoxicity. So, food, supplements, what do? You walk into a natural food store or a vitamin store, it can be overwhelming. There's 10 shelves with 30,000 supplements and brand X, and this one's on sale, and how do I know, and what do I pick? I'm not going to speak too much about supplement quality today, but I am going to point out a few supplements and herbs that I think are very helpful to have in your home apothecary as well as your gypsy wagon for when you travel and journey. Some specific things for supporting your neurotransmitters: 5-HTP or 5-hydroxytryptophan, L-tyrosine, SAMe, omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin C, B-complex vitamins, and folic acid. And we're going to go into each of these just lightly. So specifically to support serotonin synthesis, 5-hydroxytryptophan is the best molecule because it falls in here in the biosynthetic pathway. L-tryptophan can be derived from protein in food, although it is pretty much the lowest amino acid that's found in foods in a natural form. And it requires a couple of steps for your body to have enough stomach acid to cleave it from the protein, release it as an amino acid. It has to go through this other step in order to get to the 5-HTP, which is a direct precursor to serotonin. It can also be shunted into niacin and other protein formations. So if you're going to support your serotonin, I suggest that you do it with 5-HTP. Standard dosages for people who are using it for mood disorders or sleep regulation is about 150 milligrams at bedtime. This is an anecdotal report as far as the importance for MDMA users. In my research, I found that actually preloading 150 milligrams 2 to 3 times a day for at least 2 days before an MDMA journey, 150 milligrams twice during the journey, and 150 milligrams twice a day for the 3 days after really is powerful at preventing the serotonin blowout and crash that can be associated with that. And as you can see over here, there's a variety of different cofactors that are really important for making these reactions happen in the body. So having those vitamins and minerals on board make your neurochemistry work better. Dopamine, norepinephrine, and epinephrine synthesis all start with tyrosine. Tyrosine can be synthesized in the body from phenylalanine, whereas tryptophan cannot. So this one you don't necessarily have to take into the diet because you can synthesize it. And you can see tyrosine goes to L-dopa, then to dopamine, to noradrenaline or norepinephrine, and then eventually to epinephrine. Some things that are very supportive for this process is SAMe, which I'm going to talk about in the next slide, and L-tyrosine. Dosed at about 500 milligrams twice a day can be very supportive of dopamine formation, so it can be helpful for mood enhancement. It also may be helpful for LSD users, as there is this dopamine agonist effect, and supporting proper dopamine synthesis is important. The nice benefit of tyrosine supplementation is also the precursor to a thyroid molecule. Okay, 2 minutes. Wow, we're going to have to speed through. SAMe, really helpful for synthesis of melatonin, epinephrine, and glutathione, which is the body's most detoxifying molecule. Helpful for depression, detox, may-induced mania, and bipolar, so you don't want to use it there necessarily. Omega-3 fatty acids, it's really important to look at your source. If you're getting them from vegetables, there's a couple other biosynthetic steps to get to the end products that are most desirable, whereas fish and fish oil and eggs and grass-fed beef go directly into the DHA and EPA, which are the beneficial omega fatty acids, and I recommend 3,000 milligrams a day if you're going to supplement it. DHA is the form that's preferred by the brain. I'm going to speak quickly to the adrenal glands. Excuse me. These are little hats that sit on top of your kidneys. They release all sorts of things like sex hormones and cortisol and catecholamines. As you can see, our dear goddess over here is looking at a snake, and there's this complex series of pathways that are activated to get her to maybe run away, the fight or flight mechanism. Vitamin C, really potent antioxidant, absolutely important for immune function. The adrenal glands, when we're under stress or when we're dancing all night long or when we're meditating all night long and praying, sequester it. They take it out of the bloodstream, and then it's not necessarily available for other systems as an antioxidant or as an immune system booster. I recommend anywhere from 3,000 milligrams up at 1 to 2,000 milligram doses at a time. Any more than that and you will induce a acute loose stool, and that's no fun for anyone. Supporting the adrenal glands, really important to use B-complex vitamins, B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B12, and then folic acid gets grouped in with there. The other things I'll say about this, B12, really important to get it in the methyl or hydroxy form, not the cyano form. This is the form that's in most cheapo supplements, and it has a cyanide molecule that your body then has to detoxify. Folic acid, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate form is the best. I'm just going to go quickly through the herbal remedies and then I will be done. I consider them entheogenic allies. As many of our entheogens are plants, it's really nice to use other plants to support the process. Wild milky oats, really potent nervous system trophorestorative. This word trophorestorative means that it actually helps the cells to regenerate themselves. There's more and more research coming out now about the ability of the nervous system to regenerate itself. Very nourishing for the body. It's something that has no known toxicity. It's also been shown to be helpful for treating addiction. California poppy, our state flower, a really wonderful, mild euphoric, mild sedative. It's non-addictive. It does not have the strong alkaloids of its cousin, the opium poppy, although we might wish it did at times. It is contraindicated in pregnancy, but it is safe for children and the elderly, and this is a great one for helping to kind of boost the mood if you've maybe feeling a little sad after a journey, maybe you've went through some big emotional process and you're needing some support. This can bring some sunshine back into your life. Ashwagandha, wonderful tonifying, relaxing adaptogen. A lot of adaptogens are stimulatory to the adrenal glands, which is not necessarily what you want if you've been on a journey and you've been a little amped up during that process. It's a great immunomodulator as well. It's very helpful for helping people go to sleep, hence its species name somnifera. Known as a sexual tonic in Ayurveda and helpful with morphine withdrawal in particular, and doesn't have any known toxicity. St. John's wort is the second to last herb I'm going to speak about. Hypericum perforatum. It might not be easy to see, but the flowers actually have little tiny slits and holes in them, and according to the doctrine of signatures, when you hold the flower up to the sunshine, it allows the light to come through and back into your life. So it's very useful for mild depression. It's a potent antiviral. It is also helpful for nerve pain and wound healing. It may cause photosensitivity in large doses over time. It also does induce a variety of cytochrome P450 enzymes. That's very important if you're taking any other pharmaceuticals, as it can influence the clearance of those drugs. So if you're going to take this and you're taking other drugs, you want to definitely be under the supervision of someone who is trained in such things. It is contraindicated in pregnancy and should not be used with SSRIs or MAOIs because it can potentiate their effect too much. Last but not least, lovely milk thistle, a hepatoprotective, so it protects the liver. Also hepatic trophorestorative, again, regenerates the cells in the liver. So if you do happen to have a drink while you're on a journey, or you have a really challenging detox process in an ayahuasca session and you're feeling like a little depleted, this is a great herb to use long term for really supporting your system. It's a great antioxidant. It's also been shown to be protective against radiation. And you want to also monitor pharmaceutical use with this, as it does induce clearance in the liver. So, the places we'll go. Yes. These are some the things in summary, what I would recommend having in your entheogenic apothecary. And some other possible helpers that show some promise, but there's more research to be done. GABA, L-theanine, vinpocetine, kava kava, gotu kola, ginkgo. These herbs and supplements also have a lot of potential for supporting entheogenic experiences. And thank you. I really appreciate you all being here. And feel free to ask me any questions.
I apologize, we're a little strapped by time, so we have time for just a couple of questions, maybe two.
Thank you very much. It's very interesting. Do you have there's a lot of information. Is there on your website? Can we get that information?
You know what I'll do? What I'll do is email me. I'll put it together in a little handout and I'll make it available. It's not published on my website, nor is this work that I'm doing. But yeah, please email me. I'll get it to you. Yes.
I started taking a velvet bean supplement a while back, Mucunipurians, and it's
Not familiar with that
it's
one.
very rich in catecholamines, good for lucid dreaming and that sort of thing. But I also noticed a distinctive qualitative difference to my DMT experiences. I just was wondering if you could comment on it. It sounds like
I'm not familiar with the
velvet bean.
Velvet bean. Do you know
Yeah.
the species name by chance?
Mucunipurians.
Mucunipurus.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not familiar. But
Okay.
if it's enhancing your catecholamines and you're bringing DMT on board, what's your subjective experience? Are you having a potentiated effect or?
I
would
would call it
expect that.
potentiated and different quality, more colorful experience
Maybe
of
some
the
more clarity to
manifold
it.
at the peak, and some other. It's different. That's all.
different.
It's such an ineffable experience anyway. But it's and it seems like it affects the duration too, almost like it potentiates.
Potentiates. It would make sense that it would potentiate it, especially the catecholamines are responsible for our fight or flight response and the sympathetic nervous system
yeah.
amping up. So it would make sense that it would potentiate it in that way,
Also enhances lucid dreaming, which is
which is nice.
if anybody's interested in that.
Velvet bean.
Velvet bean.
Any other
Yeah.
questions?
Yeah. Solar ray. Dopamine, they
Research
sell it as.
far as integrating this work into physical practice or yoga practice.
That's a great question. Myself personally, yes, and in experiences with friends, yes. I often bring in a very somatic component. I'm a very embodied person, and I like to move, I like to dance, I like to do yoga. I think that bringing those practices into entheogenic exploration is important and can really enhance it as well, because you're setting your body into the frame of an intentional experience. So yes to my own personal experience, and not to no to doing a bunch of research though in any formal way. Any other questions? Well, thank you all so much. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of the day.